Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. I am Cody, and today I'm here with Jordan.
Hello.
We have a variety of topics we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the ruling on Obamacare and if it is or is not unconstitutional. We're going to touch on the bump stock ban, Tucker Carlson, Patreon, and a few other things
Jack
that we'll
Dorsey's an
get.
idiot.
Yes, Jack Dorsey and the Magic Amulet. So those are some of the things we're going to kind of go over today. Hopefully we can make it fun and entertaining for all you guys. Um, so we're going to start off with the Obamacare thing. Um, when Obamacare first came out, I wasn't a big fan of it. I'm still not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of universal health care at all. But the the argument that they're trying to make is that with the removal of the individual mandate, that Obamacare is unconstitutional. Because if you recall, in the Supreme Court, the reason why it passed muster there was because they said that that mandate was actually a tax and that Congress had the legal authority to impose taxes. Since that mandate's been removed, there are some attorney generals from Texas and Wisconsin who are trying to overturn to say that the rest of Obamacare is unconstitutional.
Well, I guess I'm just not under because honestly, it feels like a bit of a stretch to for like a lower level judge to decide that it's unconstitutional. Um, just because I mean, even if you want to say, if you want to get into the technical details of if it's a tax, if it's a penalty, if it's this, that, or the other, you have to like extend that to why the rest of it, like, is it supposed to be that, the entire bill is supported by the tax? Is that how this is being framed? Because I guess I'm just not seeing the connection between one piece of it being untenable to the whole thing falling apart because that one piece is untenable.
Well, the only reason that it was allowed to go forward was that it was considered a tax because I believe it's illegal one way in some way on under the Constitution or something to force individuals to purchase anything.
Hmm.
You can't say you must have health care, um, or else, I guess. I don't exactly know because you're required to have car insurance, but
Yeah. But then
like I
again, I mean, it's also that's kind of part and parcel with buying a car in the first place. So it's
yeah.
almost like you're kind of agreeing to another responsibility by virtue of purchasing the first thing. So it's sort of like a tack on, which I don't agree with, but at least I could see how you could get around that argument. Um, this one, I guess I'm not seeing how it follows because I sort of understand what he's saying. It's like, okay, so now that it's not universal, now that it's not like an expectation that it's mandated, it goes from being a tax coming from Congress because it's mandated to being a penalty because it's not mandated. So any state that is using it, it could only be called a penalty, right?
Right.
Because it's no longer coming from Congress because the rules have changed. Um, but I guess I'm not seeing where the rest of it comes in unless they're making the argument that it's the funding mechanism that it relies on.
Yeah, it's the argument. I mean, the argument to me seems a little weak. Um, so I wish it to be true. I'm not going to pretend that it's a super strong argument, but it does seem a little weak in that the whole challenge is that the only reason that this passed the Supreme Court was because it was considered a tax. And now that they're not collecting that tax anymore, and Ben Shapiro kind of made this point that just because the tax is zero doesn't mean that it's still not a tax.
Right.
And so it kind of smacks of just like rules lawyering, for lack of a better term.
I mean, it kind of is, but I mean, like, if we're gonna get real technical about it to the point of like pointing out the possibility of a 0% tax, I think the whole like thrust behind this was that it was no longer Congress, you know, taking out the tax. It's not coming from them anymore. It's not federally legislated, thereby making it not a federal tax. Which, if it's going to be universal, well, it has to be federal. You can't have Texas imposing taxes on California. That wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So if it's going to be a universal tax, it has to be coming from our legislate. It has to be coming from the legislators. If it's not coming from them, well, then it can't be called a tax, which is like that part I understand. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how the rest of it connects.
Yeah, it would be that since they're not collecting a tax, then the only thing that it's all it is it is forcing people to buy goods and services, which
Yeah.
I'm I can't remember if that's where that's spelled out in the Constitution. That's might be somewhere in the Commerce Clause or something.
Well, it's just such a weird thing too, because there seems to be sort of an assumption that if we don't get universal health care, that there will be no solution forthcoming. It's not true. When it comes to like Alabama, for instance, which I know everybody, any progressive listening to this is already rolling their eyes at the idea of Alabama doing something right. But um, out in Alabama, they're working on something called a concierge clinic, where basically what happens is you pay your doctor a subscription fee. And if you're sick, you go to his full service clinic that, like, if you're choosing a good one, is going to be fully stocked. It's going to have medicine, shots, MRA machines, um, the whole kit and caboodle. And you don't pay you don't have to pay like a copay or anything because you just give them your money. You pay your doctor instead of paying a middleman that I don't understand the functional purpose of at this point in history. Like at one point, the insurance companies had a purpose, but what do they do now except deny you health care for something you're paying for?
Right. I think I don't know. I just know the healthcare system is pretty messed up and it's
It's
way
fucked,
more
yeah.
complicated than my brain can comprehend without
I'm
some
just
sort of
saying, it sort of feels like this whole thing is enforcing, it's just a really weird version of protectionism for a market that I don't feel like still deserves to exist. And if we had just left well enough alone, might not exist right now.
yeah. Um, what was I going to say?
Like I'm not one of those people that says the free market is going to solve everything, but in a lot of situations, if it's down to a company or set of companies that just suck and no one likes them, they're going to get replaced. I promise.
Yeah, I mean the market will find a way, but I do believe that there are some things that the market just can't do, and I think healthcare is something they can do very well. I just think that there's currently too much regulation on the market to allow healthcare to do very well, and I am not an expert by any means, and I wish I could go into more detail about what those regulations are and aren't that are
Well,
holding the market back, but
I think a good rule of thumb when it comes to what the proper role of what the government should be doing as far as enforcement and regulation. Something that occurred to me was long term, should the government actually have its hands in healthcare? And in my personal opinion, no. But there are situations where the government does need to step in, like with the bank crisis that came up in 2013, I believe, under Obama, where everyone was super pissed off that he bailed out the banks. But it was sort of a situation where it's like either bail them out or the world economy tanks. I don't think that we need to set up a welfare system to pay the banks on a regular basis, but a one-time cash infusion, like for emergency regulation, where it's like, hey, for this limited scope, for a specific thing for a specific set of time. Here's how we're going to address it. Like with FEMA, right? Um,
Right.
for all the faults that FEMA has, I think we're better off with FEMA than without it. I think everyone can agree on that. Um, yeah, I think in limited scope operations, that's fine. I think if Obamacare was, hey, the insurance companies aren't, covering pre-existing conditions, here's our temporary solution while we work on something better. But it sort of became billed as, here's our permanent solution. By the way, it still sucks.
Yeah, I don't like that whole like let's legislate for everybody something that should only apply to a very small minority of people. And if
Sure.
you if you get like me, like I had a period in my life where I didn't have health care and my wife still doesn't have health care, but that's like our choice. Like we
Mm,
choose to do that and we're still young enough to where we can do that. Eventually I'd, love to get her on health care, but it's just like the pre-existing conditions thing is if you're born with it, I can understand. I feel sympathetic and I would hope that private charity and your family could help take care of you. And I believe in most cases that could happen, but there are some cases where it it can't. And it's kind of
right.
like the same argument that he used for abortion. It's like, well, what about rape? So if we we should just make abortion free for everybody. It kind of feels like the same thing. Like, well, healthcare should just be free, quote unquote, free for everybody
Right.
because of pre-existing conditions.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that these people need assistance, but I also think that we need to recognize that someone with a pre-existing condition has a very different circumstance than someone that doesn't. So maybe in situations like that, maybe wrap it up into disability and just say, okay, if you have a pre-existing condition, you specifically can get some sort of assisted healthcare, like a VA style situation. So I'm saying like maybe wrap it up into disability, something that we already recognize as, okay, you've got a permanent problem that's not going away, right? Like this isn't
Right.
a temporary thing. You don't have the flu. You've got a permanent issue that needs to be dealt with somehow. Because the section of the population that has permanent debilitating medical issues is much smaller than the total population. Like that's much more manageable.
Yeah. Well, and I'm reading some of the chat here, and it says that someone pointed out that pre-existing conditions have been covered since the 1998. Um,
I'm not entirely sure what that person's referring to.
yeah, I don't know either, but I mean, it's definitely something worth looking into.
Yeah, I'll look
Um,
into it, but
yeah, I just think that there's a lot of misinformation around healthcare, and I mean, put on your tinfoil hat, but it does feel kind of like they built this Obamacare system so that it would fail in order to push for universal health care.
it's
That's my
possible.
that's my tinfoil hat.
Well, I
But I
think
don't
it's
think
I, I
it's
think it
that
is worth at least
tinfoil.
I think it's worth at least considering because I mean, politics is politics, and it's not that weird for like a political party to form a strategy where it's like, all right, so we're gonna eat it here, but it's for this over here, you know? Um, any political organization worth its salt should at least be aware of the possibility that that might be the right direction to go strategically. Um, yeah, I'd be like, I'm sure the Republicans do that sometimes. The Democrats probably do it sometimes, but I think it is
Uh,
definitely worth considering. Like, what's the ideal policy? Now let's talk politics.
I don't know that they do that necessarily. I think that it feels like they do, but I don't know that there's like I don't know. If you ever interacted with any sort of party leadership, you kind of know that most of them don't really have much going on. um, and it's really hard to get a lot of people to do something to conspire, I guess, to get something like that done and keep it a secret
True.
because
Also very true.
it'll come out. So that's why I don't typically believe in these like conspiracy theories or like, but I do think that there are factions within, like, say, the Democrats that really want universal health care and saw this as, okay, if it fails, we can push for universal health care. If it succeeds, we can, you know,
Right,
say
until the
it
end
was
of
great.
time.
We say it was great. Uh, why not have some more?
Right.
So
Either
they
way,
see it
it's a win.
as a win-win. Yeah. Um, so in other health-related news, moving off from that, bump stock bans. Not exactly health-related. Um, I
It's mental
don't.
health related.
So my dog in the fight is I do own a gun. I don't own a bump stock though. Um, I'm
I'm
not.
not even. I honestly found bump stocks to be kind of a stupid addition anyway,
Yeah, they make. I think they make the gun less accurate, and I don't. I'm not
generally.
a fan of the bump stock, but I don't think the only reason why it was banned is because of the Vegas shooting,
Yeah, pretty much.
the biggest mass shooting in the United States that nobody ever talks about for
I
some
mean,
reason.
who knows? But like, can I just point out that when you're using a gun, typically speaking, you'd like to be accurate. Taking
Yeah,
a fully automatic gun and making it less accurate, can we just can we just make
semi-auto.
sure there, however he was doing it? Sorry, it's been a minute since the Vegas shooting. Um, anyway, like I'm just saying, why are we complaining that he made his gun less accurate?
Well, they're complaining uh, because
Like, can we give the bump stock to every single mass shooter, please?
dude, you're gonna get us kicked off of YouTube. Uh,
Like,
no,
no, it's because it makes them worse. It makes them
like the
worse.
only benefit is to shoot faster, and so the only thing I can think of, I mean, it's fun shooting guns. At least I think
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
and it would be kind of fun. I think it'd be kind of fun to shoot one. I wouldn't, advocate for everybody having them, but
Well, I mean, you don't even need a like. There's a technique called bump firing. You don't even need a bump stock.
right,
Like, you
yeah,
can literally do that right now with your gun as it is.
and I'm not even like. With that said, I'm not a big bump stock person, but I am a gun owner. But the reason I would oppose this, and this is one of the spots where I disagree with Trump on, is that um, it's one of those you give them an inch, they take a mile sort of things. To me,
Well,
it's
that
just
and
a
you're supposed to be like, Jobs president, Jobs president. Can I just point out that there are people that were manufacturing these that just lost their job?
right.
That
That is
over an
also true.
item, that it's an item that doesn't really matter. It's not a good item. It's kind of crappy, but it's at least fun for people that don't want to learn the technique. Even though they're going to be less accurate, being able to sort of fire full auto is pretty fun. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like a feel good thing where I think he's trying to like reach across the aisle a little bit, which I can appreciate, but like either you're the jobs president or you're not. Don't fuck up American manufacturing
Well,
and then call yourself the jobs president.
the ban um, to either destroy or turn in your bump stocks is March 21st. This is according to Sarah Sanders. So for all of you people who have bump stocks and they might go missing between now and then, that's when the Gestapo will come and take your bump stocks. I don't think
I
if
really don't think local police is going to give a shit, but
no, I don't think anyone's going to try to go and take them. It's more of a if you see it, do something about it as the police. But
right.
there are several um, pro-gun advocate, pro-Second Amendment advocates who are ready to fight this in the courts. I think Gun Owners of America,
I think they should.
um, said they're prepared to file a lawsuit against the ATF and the Justice Department.
Well, I mean, realistically speaking, all this bump stock ban is actually going to do is basically if you do commit a shooting and you have a bump stock, well, welcome to it being a more serious crime because it was done with a bump stock attached, right? That's basically all it's actually going to end up doing. Because if someone comes knocking, is like, do you have where's the bump stock? We know you registered one. I lost it. Like you said, what are they going to do? Break into your house and search the whole place? No.
No, yeah, they're not going to do that.
So it's really what this ends up being to me is they want someone somewhere wanted a way to like be able to hand down a harsher prosecution if a bump stock is involved somehow.
That, and I think it's just another like, look at I'm super tough on gun control and reelect
Yeah.
me. Like it just speaks to the gun grabber base.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
really sure who he's actually trying to appeal to because his base doesn't give it like
well,
anyone that
yeah,
like knows anything about guns knows that the bump stock is fucking stupid. It
yeah, with
I'm just saying, what
yeah,
gun nut are you sitting there? What gun nut have you ever talked to where they're just like, hey, bro, check out my pump stock? They don't give a shit.
yeah. They don't really care about. I mean, Trump just I don't think he's a big gun person. He's from New York, right? Like
True.
guns are practically illegal there anyway. So, um, talking about taking things away from people, Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I'm really hitting these transitions.
We need Nico for these transitions.
I know his are classic. Tucker Carlson has been losing some advertisers. 11 companies, including IHOP, TD Ameritrade, Pacific Life Insurance, NerdWallet, Minted, Ancestry.com, Indeed, and Smile Direct Club have all pulled their advertising from his show.
Oh, whatever. They'll be replaced by someone else.
Oh yeah,
Tucker Carlson's too power. Like Tucker Carlson is too popular
that's
for
right.
all of these bitches to pull out, and then for it not to be the case that some other advertiser comes in. Maybe the advertiser wants a better price because, these other advertisers don't want to do it anymore. So maybe he loses a little bit of money, but let's be honest, who we're not going to go watch Tucker Carlson. The ad break comes on, and there's just going to be like a blank screen. It's like, sorry guys, we couldn't find an ad to put here.
Yeah.
Like, really, come on now.
Well, what surprised me was that there were some companies like Bayer and Mitsubishi and Farmers Insurance said
Mhm.
that basically just said, "Meh, we don't care. We're not changing anything right now." They kind of made like the obligatory like, oh, the shows we advertise on don't necessarily hold the same views as our company, but we're still going to put ads on there because they're super popular. They
Thank
kind of made
you.
that
That's
that thing
that's the appropriate response for
right.
any marketing division. It's like, look, we just want to sell you hamburgers and cars. We're not in your weird culture war. Like that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, and Fox News did a pretty good job of standing up to them too. They said
Good.
something like that they're not going to be uh, what is it? That Tucker Carlson was the focus of an agenda, quote, an agenda-driven intimidation efforts, and that he was being, quote, threatened via Twitter by far-left activist groups with deeply political motives. So they're pretty.
I I sincerely hope that like the any marketing person and all the PR people that are looking at this situation that have been terrified for so long about like advertiser backlash or consumer backlash, I really hope they look at this case and realize, oh right, nobody's actually going to boycott us because we were advertising on Tucker Carlson. If someone wants to get a freaking Kia, they're not gonna not get a Kia because fucking Kia decided to put an ad on Tucker Carlson. Like nobody makes purchasing decisions that way. Like
Right.
unless you've got an exorbitant amount of money, no one makes purchasing decisions that way.
Well, yeah, that was the question I had when I was looking into this: is do these companies think that Americans are so stupid that they can't separate advertisers from the opinions of the show they advertise on. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm watching YouTube and an ad comes up for Progressive Insurance and it's on, um, I don't know, a PewDiePie video, do I think PewDiePie and Progressive Insurance have anything in common? No. Like, PewDiePie's popular and Progressive wants to reach as many people as they can. That's what I think.
Oh my God. I just is Progressive on the subscribe to PewDiePie train? I gotta buy Progressive. Oh fuck.
I don't know. Progressive probably supports T Series.
Oh, just like we're supporting PewDiePie, like the mega corporations are supporting other mega corporations.
Yeah.
That would actually be kind of entertaining. You just have like Progressive start tweeting out, subscribe to T Series,
Well,
replace the meme lord now.
it's going to be part of the culture war here soon.
Oh my, that would actually be really entertaining. I want to see Wendy's go out there and run fucking interference for T Series.
It's like the only fast food restaurant I'll eat at now.
Why? Because of their Twitter.
Yeah, and like Burger King had the whole like chick fries thing, which was really stupid. Like the pink chicken fries that were more expensive because mo wage gap.
Oh
Um,
my God.
yeah. Uh,
Kill me.
but the whole like the thing with Tucker Carlson is that they in the article I read by who was it? The New York Times, which whatever. They talked to a professor, a teacher of public relations, um,
Mm.
and what she said. Her name was Kara Alamio, um, at
Great. Good
Hofstra
job.
University. Yeah,
Hmm.
what do you expect, man? I'm white.
Hmm.
She said that consumers, what'd she say? That his comments, which were basically like he said something about immigrants making it dirtier here, or illegal immigrants, or something like that. Something I
He
didn't.
said he okay. So Tucker Carlson said the immigrants are coming here and making us dirtier, poorer, and more divided. Is I'm pretty sure that's the quote.
So he was speaking the truth.
Oh my God. Well, to be fair, when you say it like that, I can see
Right.
why people would be like, "Oh my God, seriously."
Yeah,
Um,
it was divisive, but it's not
like
completely untrue, but it's
I feel like there was definitely like I understand the point he was trying to make, but there was definitely a better way to put it. Um,
yeah, it's another
but
one of
I guess
those
it could be. I guess I'm not really one to talk, am I? Whatever.
another one of those you need to be careful, like say things, think about what you say before you say it, sort of. What does
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson say? Anyway, but she was saying that it's a problem for companies because they don't want to be associated with hateful or inaccurate information. She said, quote, consumers generally understand that brands that appeal to Americans across the political spectrum, certainly like Bayer, who actually stood beside Tucker,
Good.
may advertise on a whole range of platforms, but I think that there are expectations when a brand with its dollars supports an organization or an individual who is truly outside the mainstream. So this person
Why was
thinks
that?
that Tucker Carlson is outside the mainstream.
It's on Fox fucking
Like,
News. He is the mainstream.
right. He is the mainstream. He's the right half of the mainstream.
Fucking if you're on TV news, you are the mainstream. Shut the fuck up.
Pretty much. Um, so I just thought that was weird that she just doesn't see him as mainstream and then just kind of went after Bayer, kind of like hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You should stop supporting him too.
I
But
think some of the businesses are starting to cotton on to it because this is something we all should have predicted is that whatever the issue is, it doesn't even matter because the businesses it takes several years for companies to shift and start realizing it took a few years for companies to shift into this. It's going to take a few years for them to shift out. It's just companies are big and they're slow.
well, yeah, they need to take a lesson from Patreon and understand the whole get woke, go broke.
Yeah, model. Yeah, it's. Well, because a lot of them seem to be thinking that like the idea is, millennials are progressive, right? Which to a certain extent is
No, I'm
true.
not.
Well, neither am I, but to a certain
Right.
extent is true. And it's if you're trying to pander to millennials, you typically would think that you're pandering to a progressive. The problem is none of that seems to have actually translated into sales. For whatever reason, progressives are broke. Um,
Well, you can't appease the mob, and if you try, it's just gonna get the mob to see that their anger and outrage is doing something, and they're just going to continue to be angry and outraged. It's what is it? Positively reinforcing that behavior.
well, I think there's also a secondary part to that where there is inherent attraction to progressive ideas if you're broke, right? I don't think it's any coincidence that, all the hippies, not very many of them were rich. There were very few rich hippies. I mean, they happen, but there's definitely an inherent attraction to the idea that you're going to get stuff if you don't have stuff,
Well, I can tell
right?
you, it comes from the underlying socialist communist theory behind their philosophy of life is that it doesn't really see the only way for someone to be in a position of authority is through power. So there's no such thing as uh,
You
the
know, I
authority of competence.
I
And
think that
so the
comes
only
later.
the only reason that they have money is because they stole it or took it from somebody.
Well, I mean, I think I honestly feel like that's more like on their part. I feel like that's more of a justification for what they actually want. Because in a lot of cases, I think it's just much simpler than that, where it's just there's something I either need or want or feel like I need, and I don't have it. And I've got this guy over here promising to give it to me, and then you fall into it because I this is what I'm being promised, right? So here's all the ideas surrounding it. Here's Keynesian economics. Here's like all these different things that you learn over time as you get into it. Because there is a process. You don't go from zero to rabid progressive overnight. You know,
Zero to communist in 3 days.
well, yeah, but seriously, it takes time, and I think it really is just an entry point when you've got someone that doesn't really have shit
But
that
why?
someone
Well, why
someone
are?
promises it.
Well, I would think that that's true, except for the fact that most progressives are upper middle class uh, trust fund babies, more or less.
Yes, yes, but this is honestly to me a classic mismatch of expectations because you've got progressives that, like you said, they're middle class, they are trust fund babies, they're all these different things, and yet where are they actually? Because I mean, you remember this, you're a millennial too. Our entire childhoods, we were spent being told, college equals job equals money.
Yeah,
Fucking job equals power, power equals influence, influence equals money. Like it all like ties in from college, right? So you
right.
get a whole bunch of kids that come from middle class backgrounds that have never had to really like these aren't the children of laborers. They don't know how to work. They know like I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but like when you come from a white collar background, you learn white collar mannerisms and you have white collar expectations. If those
Yeah,
expectations aren't being satisfied, okay, well, then you start asking questions for why. Because a lot of these people, I mean, it's a joke. It's like it's a meme, but it's also kind of sad that a lot of these kids that were effectively lied to and that went to college just to get the piece of paper are now working at fucking Starbucks. And like I said, there's a mismatch of expectations where they're not actually doing too bad, but they think that they're doing awful.
well, yeah, they want it all right now, and I do think that you're onto something because I do remember being told, and I think this is probably because my parents' generation, it was true that you go to college, you get a
Right.
degree, and you can get any job you want. And I was told that a thousand
Yeah,
times
maybe
by,
maybe the lie thing was over the top because they're not trying to lie to us.
well,
It's
no,
just
it was
the
true
field has
for them,
changed. Right, the
right?
field has changed.
And so I was told that by pretty much every adult.
Hmm.
Go to college, You can whatever you get a degree in whatever you want. Anyone you're gonna be able to find a good job. And then I did. I went to college. Um, and when I got out of college, I got a degree, a Bachelor of Arts in English, and my degree was actually more of a hurdle for me than a benefit. Now, I had I guess you could say, privilege of growing up in a more or less working class family where neither one of my parents were college educated. They both worked, started out working labor jobs. My mom worked in like an office doing um, like paperwork and scheduling. And then my
Mhm.
stepdad was the general manager, but he started out in maintenance
Mhm.
at 18 and he'd been there for like 20, 30 years. Um, and so I came from that sort of background. And I also had the other benefit of being able to live at home with my parents, work like 6 days a week, 10 hours a day during the summer, and save every penny and pay my college tuition as I went, as
Yeah.
opposed to taking out student loans. So I don't have student loan debts, but people like my wife have enormous student loan debts because they were told, oh, it doesn't matter, like take out as much as you want. We'll keep the interest rates low. Um, you'll be approved because the government is subsidizing it. And once you're done, you're going to get this fantastic job and you're going to have an awesome life and just be do amazing things. But that may have been true like 20 years ago or so, or 30 years ago.
Right.
But
Back before the government subsidized it, and now everyone has a
right,
degree, so no
yeah,
one cares
once
anymore.
it's basic supply and demand that the market is
Right.
now saturated with bachelor's degrees, so they're not as valuable. They want a master's degree.
Yeah, honestly, I would say for your average person, go to your community college, get the associates, get the piece of paper, and then unless you've got like a plan for your bachelor's degree, I wouldn't even bother.
Yeah, I would tell people to go into trades, honestly. I mean,
Sure.
I wish I would have, because you can make really good money being a plumber, or I mean,
Hmm.
it's not glorious. You're not going to be uh, super famous. You're not going to be rich, but you're going to provide a service that's going to be in demand because we're always going to have pipes.
True.
Um, we're always going to have toilets that clog. And so you'll always have work, especially if you're a good plumber,
Hmm.
and you're going to be able to make a decent living and live in a nice house and raise children or whatever it is that you want to do. You probably won't be able to take a trip around the world every year or whatever, or go on fabulous cruises, but
I mean, that
who
really depends on like how good
wants to
you
do
are
that
and
anyway?
whether or not you learn about investing. That's one reason why, like, I at least see some value in college because there are certain things where it's college acts as kind of like a shortcut
Yeah.
through like to help you cut through a lot of the bullshit, like especially when it comes to things like business knowledge. Um, Learning accounting on your own is kind of a nightmare. Learning finance on your own is kind of a nightmare. Um, there's just a lot of things where there's definitely value to the courses that the colleges provide. It's just the degree, it doesn't seem to provide the same value.
Yeah. Um,
It's the degree seems to be less. The degree seems to somehow be less than the sum of its parts, which is a really weird situation.
yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, I can see that to be true. I mean, and and that I can see why people are bitter about that. Um, I would be if I had all this debt and nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I mean, because I honestly feel like at least some section of it is, you know, you've got a certain section of the population with mismatched expectations that was not raised with the work ethic that you were if you were in a blue collar job, saddled with shitloads of debt, a shitty job, and then you've got someone coming on the side whispering in your ear, going, "We'll fix all that for you. Just here's all the things that are surrounding that justify why we're able to do that." And then it just throws you deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the. I mean, we could talk about this all night, but
True.
I think that uh, we should transition.
We
Um,
should.
this story, you
Good
were
transition.
famous. That's Nico level transition.
Thank you.
Um, this one, you know way more about than I do, but I do think it's important. Patreon uh, is suffering some troubles. I know Sam Harris. I saw Sam Harris deleted his Patreon over the
Yeah,
banning of Sargon, and I also heard that like Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin are working on an alternative.
sure. The easiest way to concisely put this all together is Sargon got banned for basically calling Nazis a racial slur, um, which is amusing in its own way. I honestly think that the reason Sargon actually got banned has nothing to do with hate speech, based on what Tim Pool pointed out, is that like for anyone watching this that somehow hasn't already found out about this, go to Patreon, type in any racial slur you want, including the N word. Um, like in quotations, like look for any like racially derogatory phrase you can think of, put it in quotations, search it on Patreon. Unless they've done a purge at this point, you're going to find pages and pages and pages of the worst hate speech you can imagine. Um, go as dark as your heart desires. It's there. Anyway, and Patreon isn't banning those accounts, just Sargon. So yeah, I honestly think the reason he actually got banned was because it got revealed, and I think these sorts of companies, if they're applying it, you know, that directly, it's usually one of two things in my experience. It's either there's like a serious ideological bent, which is entirely possible, much more likely for a young company like Patreon that's been talking this whole time about, we're a free speech platform, you're not going to get deplatformed, it's fine, is that someone started threatening their money, right? Like PayPal and the whole Subscribe Star thing, which I'll get to in a second. I honestly think that somewhere along the chain of command, Patreon got told by someone, get rid of this dude, we don't want to be associated with it, or else. Which I wish they had just been more transparent about, because
Yeah.
that at least would have been like an okay, I don't like this, but I sort of get it, like what Gab did, um, where they were put in a very similar situation, and I don't think that Gab should have caved there either, but at least it's understandable. Um, but anyway, so yeah, he gets banned. We get a whole bunch of people that just will leave straight up. Sam Harris left. Jordan Peterson's trying to leave. Dave Rubin's trying to leave. Sword and Scale, the fifth largest Patreon account on the site, is leaving.
Wow.
Just yeah, everybody's fucking. It's just hemorrhaging, and now Jordan Peterson is talking about a new possible platform that I believe he said was going to be based on cryptocurrencies,
Oh.
so that it's untraceable. Yeah. Um, and it's not. It's basically them just providing a portal, as I understand it, to make it easier to get through that. But obviously, I don't have any special information on how exactly that's all going to work. It's just what Jordan Peterson's put out there. Yeah, so his them trying to set up something that would be an effective and more bias proof platform that
Yeah.
can't just have PayPal come in and be like, get rid of this dude
Well,
because
yeah,
we don't like him and we want you to take the hit.
that was something that I was like I didn't really understand fully was that um, like PayPal just said to Subscribe Star, "Oh, we're not gonna
Well,
support your platform anymore," or
I'll
something
we're
like
about to yeah, I'm about to get there. So Jordan Peterson starts talking about that, but the reason he was talking about that actually came from Subscribestar because he was looking at alternatives to Patreon. And then as soon as he goes looking at Subscribestar, right after this whole Sargon of Akkad thing happened, where Sargon tried to move to Subscribestar, and Tim tried to move to Subscribestar, Tim Pool, and a lot of other people did at the same time too, who were non-political, but they were losing tons and tons of patrons. So everybody starts panicking and it's like, hey, we need to find an alternative. We need to find somewhere else for our patrons to go because they're not happy here. And you started fucking with everyone's money, and well, there you go, Patreon. Now everyone's leaving because it's basically a Patreon bank rush. Have fun with that. Um,
Yeah, don't mess with my cheddar, bitch.
right, right. I mean, even the non-political patrons were like, they were sitting there going, "What the fuck?" Um, Same thing happened with Lauren Southern, but that was at least more understandable. Um,
But yeah, Lauren
anyway,
Southern was like the first big name, and then now with Sargon and the way that they did it, and the
right.
fact that it didn't even happen on their platform or his YouTube channel, like he wasn't getting paid for that video at all.
I wouldn't
Just
even mind all of that.
made
I
everybody
just
nervous. Like they could just take my livelihood away next. So
Right. Like these platforms do need to understand that applying their terms of service inaccurately and retroactively is ridiculous. But anyway, so back to Subscribestar. Um, Everyone starts looking for an alternative. Subscribestar comes up, and then magically, as soon as Subscribestar comes up, uh, another company associated with PayPal, Sargon tries to move there, and magically, Subscribestar gets nuked from orbit by PayPal, which is why Patreon and PayPal are actually looking at the possibility of an antitrust lawsuit. Um,
yeah, what is
for
with that?
Basically, they're saying that Patreon and PayPal colluded to exclude a market partner in the form of, or a market competitor in the form of Subscribestar. So basically,
Oh,
they're being accused of coordinating to deliberately take out competition via destroying their means of producing money. Like they're basically accused of stealing Subscribestar's wallet in like coordination with each other.
in corporate terms.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
like wouldn't that be like something like the railroads conspiring to shut down other
exactly. Yeah. It's
oil
an anti
producers
it's
or
a,
something?
it's an antitrust issue. Yeah. It's basically saying we're not going to allow you to compete. It looks like from the outside, it looks like Patreon trying to establish itself as a monopolistic force. And you can't do that so overtly in the United States. That's not how that works. You can form a natural
Well,
monopoly, like in the form of PayPal, because you're like if you're the monopoly because you're the best, well, that's fair. If you're a monopoly because you've destroyed all the other competition by stealing their way of making revenue, not okay. So, like, very not okay. Like, it, there's going to be some if this is actually true, PayPal and Patreon are on the hook for some really bad shit. So we'll see. We don't know anything yet. Um, there's there hasn't been any sort of discovery, anything. There hasn't been any sort of like information released. So
no
I can't.
lawsuits filed yet.
I think the lawsuit's already been filed.
Okay,
I
good.
don't think we don't have any information about what exactly has been said or discovered or any of that just yet. So
I'm curious to see
we'll
how
know.
that plays out in the court of law and how differently it'll play out in like the court of public opinion.
Right.
Um,
Like I think Patreon has already lost the argument in the court of public opinion. Like they're already fucked there. Like what are they going to say? Hey, by the way, all the patrons on our site, I know that we lost you like at least 20% of your revenue. You'll be fine.
yeah,
Like what the fuck are they
uh,
going to say?
yeah, I don't know. It's hmm.
Like even their
Yeah,
PR statements, they're basically just saying it really just does look like their PR statements are we know that we fucked up. Um, we know that you guys are already all gone, so we're just gonna stick with what we have left. Fuck off.
yeah. I wonder like how much they can. I mean, legally, I don't know a lot about the antitrust laws or corporation laws or anything like that. I'm not a
Hmm.
lawyer, but it does. I can see that point. see that where they could be held liable for violating those laws.
Yeah.
But we all kind of know the power of putting on the mask of compassion or fighting hate kind of gives you. Like, you're allowed to do terrible things in the name of combating hate speech and then
Well, I mean,
allowed to get away with it.
fortunately for us, when it comes to issues like antitrust, that's not going to work. That's not good enough.
Okay.
Like that's too
Well, yeah.
serious.
No, I don't think the courts are as corrupt, though I do think they're getting that way to some extent. Um, Especially when you see like a judge basically blocking something that Obama did, and then Trump did the same thing, and the judge says, "No, you can't do that." That's like, to me, that's corruption. That's highly
Yeah.
political corruption. Um,
I mean, you see the same thing. Like you're going to see that on both sides. There's going to be bias. There's going to be issues where people make decisions that they really shouldn't have. That's why there's appeals process. That's why there's Supreme Courts.
yeah.
Those sorts of judges don't stay usually, not forever.
Well, if they're in a
Well,
progressive state like Oregon, they stick around forever.
true.
um,
But I'm just saying when it's really bad, they normally something happens. Like the issue with that one, like Brock Turner or something that raped some chick and had like what 2 weeks in prison,
yeah,
and now the judge is on the hook for, you know, intentionally letting that kid off way too easy.
giving them a
You know,
light
I mean,
sentence. Well, yeah, I don't know the whole story of that case. I just knew that it was a big deal and people were
see,
upset about it.
I'm totally pleased to throw that fucker in jail for life just for having to listen to all the feminists having an eternal martyr in the form of Brock Turner. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
But
they'll use that case for generations. You
yeah,
know.
that's going to be a while before the Brock Turner case gets a leg on. So
Yeah, and then anyway, that's getting a little off topic.
yeah, we're a little bit off topic.
The whole like I do hope that the courts can, I don't want to say make the right decision. Well, yeah, I guess I do make the right decision here. That they don't, and I understand like individual judges having biases, and I am actually even fine with them having a bias, but they need to, I think uh, each judge needs to understand that they do have that bias and try to rule as unbiasedly as possible,
Yeah, and this is
not
all
try to,
assuming that there actually is an antitrust issue because I don't
not,
actually know that.
yeah, I mean, I hope that, I mean, that would be some sort of legal recourse to solve something like this, because it does seem like, and get my tinfoil hat again, but it does seem like um, the social media companies, and they're all located in, like, the ones in Silicon Valley, like, conspire to, say, ban Alex Jones or pull funding from Subscribestar when Patreon's taking a hit. And then,
Yeah, this is a bit different though, because it really does the antitrust issue is going to come down to is this an issue of Patreon asking pay because this really would have to be Patreon asking PayPal to take out Subscribestar for them, or is this just an issue of Patreon's being an idiot and PayPal also happened to decide to be an idiot at a very similar time? Because there's definitely going to be an element of plausible deniability where PayPal can just look at them and say, "We just here's why we fucked up Subscribestar. We didn't like them. They're gone. Sorry."
yeah, it does seem like PayPal and Patreon conspired to basically remove a competitor.
It's possible. It's possible, and it certainly does look suspicious. But we need more proof.
Well, like, I already know their defense. It's going to be that they didn't conspire, they didn't collude with each other to do this, just that they saw. PayPal made the decision because it came to light that they were giving platforms to hate speech, something along those lines, to
Right.
racists, to the alt right, and they don't want their company associated with that sort of thing. They
True.
didn't conspire, but they just made the decisions independently, and it just happened to fit this way. I mean, that would be the most um,
That would be my defense
reasonable.
in their situation.
Yeah, that's the kind of tact I would take if I were them. So, and it is hard to prove like a conspiracy like that, but it just all these social media companies and tech companies, it just feels like it just to me it just smacks of like they're all in cahoots together.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that they sit down and go, okay, we're the five most powerful social media companies on the planet. We hate Sargon of Akkad. It's like I don't think most of them even know who he is. Probably. Um,
I don't. I think they probably do
well,
because
they.
I know for a fact from like discussions that Jack Conti has held that it's
Oh yeah,
very
Jack.
clear that, huh?
Yeah, Jack does because they've had
Well,
interactions before. But I don't think
well, no,
like
no,
Mark Zuckerberg knows who
no.
Sargon of
I
Akkad.
think he might, because Jack made it very clear that he talks to all of the other, or no, maybe not all of them, but talks to a lot of the other Silicon Valley CEOs because he'll call them up and ask for advice. Because the CEOs will actually like go have dinner, they'll go talk to each other,
Yeah,
they'll interact it like as a sort of like a little club, um, because they're all sort of in the same boat. So it's just an issue of like common people with common interests and
yeah.
common perspectives.
That was the point I was getting to. Is I don't think it's them sitting down together and saying, okay, these are the people we need to blacklist, but it's just a common culture that they all share because
Right.
they're in the same like 20-mile radius of Silicon Valley.
Which is a great argument for anyone that's interested in starting a tech company, maybe just not doing it in Silicon Valley. And maybe it would be a good idea to have a few centers of technology. Just a thought.
Yeah, let's
But
start up some uh, tech companies in
Texas,
Texas. Yeah.
yeah. I
I
mean,
know.
there actually have been, I've been hearing stirrings of the possibility of seeing tech start up in a big way, either in San Antonio or Austin.
Well, yeah. The problem with that is then you get all the progressives, college-educated progressives, coming into those areas and then changing things around. Um,
Oh, they wouldn't last long in San Antonio.
Good. Um,
They're gonna have a real hard time dealing with conservative minorities.
well, like here in Oregon, we call it like the Silicon Rainforest or something silly like that, the
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Forest, where we have like because Intel's based here,
Oh,
and we do have other tech companies, but they're more like they make like the hardware and stuff. I don't know how much software and stuff like that they make here. I actually found out today that there's a like huge national trucking company that's right here in Portland. But
oh
that's
yeah,
besides the point. Yeah,
that's cool.
Freightliner. It's headquartered out of Portland, Oregon. Um, but anyway, I digress. It would be a good idea to move some of these, or not to move. And I hate saying things like this because it kind of smacks of the like social engineering. Oh, we need to move these guys around. It's like I want the market to figure these things out. But
No, I mean
currently,
obviously there's some utility in having all the tech companies around each other, but
right? Yeah, there's some
it's
utility,
still.
but then you have them all there, and what happens when like EMP attack hits Silicon Valley?
I mean, true. I don't think we need to necessarily, you know, try and force anyone out of Silicon Valley. I think it's more a case of, the cities need to be making an argument for why either, new companies should start up there or why some of these companies should move out of Silicon Valley. like
Yeah.
what they did with Amazon, where everybody was like, it was basically begging Amazon to come there. I think the most entertaining was, I think it was Cleveland that promised Amazon that they would deal with their unacceptable rate of stabbings if Amazon went there. In their words, by the way, not my words. In their words, the unacceptable rate of stabbings in our city,
Well,
which raises the question of why this wasn't being dealt with pre-Amazon. But you
right.
know, like if
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if they've got a solution ready to go that they can promise to Amazon, maybe deal with the stabbings first, and then use it as a selling point. Hey, our city doesn't have very many stabbings. Come here.
Look, our city is down 400% staffing.
We gave everyone stab-proof vests.
Yes. Um, so anyway, going on from the Patreon thing, kind of seems like
Good
we
transition.
we um, do we want to do Brexit or some little international stuff, and then we'll go into Trump. Um, just
Actually,
real
I think I can cover Brexit in about 3 words. May's fucking retarded. All right,
stupid
good
woman.
transition.
Two words, stupid woman.
Well,
But yeah, the
I mean, what
Brexit.
else are we even supposed to say about it? Like, nothing's happening.
Well, it's like 99 days until Brexit is done, or it could be a no deal Brexit in 99 days. So I'm just
I
personally, I'm just
honestly,
glad that it's going to be over.
I'm tired of listening to the hand wringing on like the whole Brexit thing, where everybody's like, "Oh, if we get a no deal Brexit, the sky's gonna, Majora's Mask moon is gonna crash into the island. Ireland's gonna flip over us, and it's gonna be like on the freaking east side instead of the west side. What are we gonna do? Norway is not gonna look like a giant penis anymore."
Yeah. Um, Looking into this a little bit, I did think that this was kind of funny that if there is a no deal Brexit, it would mean that Britons would lose the right of travel with their pets using EU pet passports. I just thought it was kind of funny that there are pet passports. I kind of
Can I just
understand
can I just point out
why.
like the banality of how stupid these complaints are? It's like, but if we get a no deal Brexit, we won't be able to import German sperm anymore.
Yeah, there's just so weird. And then like,
Like, I understand it's inconvenient, but like, fucking, come on.
well, the thing is too, like 37% of Europe's financial assets are managed in London, and that's almost twice the amount of the nearest rival, which is Paris, which is currently on fire.
Eh. Well, that in Paris is like demanding like a Frexit now. So
Yeah. So like, it's not that it's not like Britain, and they're like what the world's like fifth or seventh largest economy. Um,
well, yeah, they're our homie. What do you expect?
right, and Trump already said like we can make deals with you. I'm willing to do that. Just get the fuck out of the EU. Um, so
Seriously.
it's not like Britain has doesn't have options. They don't have. It's not like they're like
No,
that pretty girl who doesn't know, believe that they're pretty. It's
it's
like
just so
and
weird to see the lack of confidence, like you were saying.
they stay with
It's
the
just
abusive boyfriend or something.
the fucking, yeah, the EU. Holy shit. Now I'm just imagining May and Yunka fucking getting into a couples fight.
Well, yeah, it's what it is. It's a divorce, basically. Um,
Who keeps the kids?
well, clearly Britain keeps the kids.
I
I don't know. Um, who wants the kid? I mean, who are the kids? Greece and Italy? Like, no thanks.
guess France, and I mean I think we all know what England would do if they had the opportunity to just dump France.
Yeah, you know the long and honorable tradition of French and English brotherhood.
Yeah, shit talking each other.
But yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this. One last point on this is that
Bon appetit.
that Britain is the only other Britain other than France. Britain's the only other nuclear power in the EU. Um, so I guess militarily, that's a pretty big deal.
Oh, I didn't even
Like,
think about that. So if Britain and France both leave, that actually kind of really fucks the EU.
yeah, they don't have the nukes, man. They're lower than freaking North Korea at that point.
I mean, without
um,
Britain, they might already be,
yeah,
especially if Britain just straight up refuses to pay. Because I mean, seriously, what's the EU going to do with Britain if they just walk in demanding money and Britain just says no? Like, what the fuck are you going to do about it?
yeah, who knows? Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty good on Brexit. Um, the next
It's
story,
time to Brexit this story.
talking about pulling out.
Yes, perfect.
There we go. Trump is getting troops out of Syria, so he's going to withdraw more than 2,000 troops. They said it's not an end to the global coalition against ISIS, just a transition to the next phase of the campaign, whatever the hell that means. Um,
Who knows? I mean,
yeah, and
I don't even know what to make of this because, on the one hand, I kind of like that we're getting out of a war that we probably shouldn't have been in the first place. Um, on the other hand, the people that are pointing out that we are kind of leaving the Kurds to get massively murderated, they're pretty right.
well, yeah, it kind of feels like we're just abandoning halfway through,
Yeah,
and
Trogdor the Burninator is about to come through in the form of the Turkish army.
that just creates more problems and then more war later. And
Yeah, I'm not seeing a good outcome from this. Like, I don't like that we were there, but
I'm still young enough for the draft, I think. So
well, I mean, more to the point, I don't like that we were there in the first place, but now that we are there, I mean, surely we have some kind of responsibility.
yeah, I think once the decision's made, like you either go all the way or you don't. But it's like you got to see it to the end, man. Like
Yeah.
success or failure, you gotta. My football coach used to say, if you're gonna fail 100%, something like that. You know, it's like if you're gonna get a penalty or you're gonna jump off sides, you might as well hit the guy.
Right?
If you're gonna get a penalty, you might as well get something out of it.
What are they going to
Um,
do? Give you a double red card?
yeah. So I'm talking
That
American
might
football. There are no red
oh.
cards. What the fuck? They throw two flags on the play, or something. Put you in the penalty box. Now we're mixing all the sports together. Um, but I heard this. I heard today
That's it.
that
Get off the pitch.
yep. Uh, anyway, today I
LeBron
heard
James is going to knock out Muhammad Ali.
any day now. Um, something that ties in with this that I didn't get a chance to look into because it kind of came. I heard about it late today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, was that Mattis is leaving as Secretary of Defense?
Oh, really?
He's lit. Yeah, he's resigning. He's leaving sometime next year, I think. Um,
Wait, just sometime next year?
I think it was like January, February. I didn't look too much
Oh,
into it.
okay. I was like, does he not know when he's leaving?
No, he has a time. Only like I mean, next year is like what, like like a week away at this
Right,
point.
but I don't know. I was thinking more like, yeah, I'm leaving like how's July? Good
Tomorrow.
sound. Yeah.
No, he's leaving, and I heard some of the like amongst the it's the mainstream media is where I heard this from. So who knows how reliable it is, but it's like they always want to make it seem like, oh, they're leaving because of the chaos in the Trump White House, and that probably could be true. Um,
It wouldn't
but
surprise me.
but they said that part of it was this decision to get out of Syria, and that Mattis didn't think that it was a good idea, um, amongst other things. But
Yeah.
and like Mattis kind of opposed the banning of transgenders in the military, and which I was kind of personally I could go either way on that. I don't think I don't think that you should deny people that are transgender the ability to go into the military, but I don't think the military should have to pay for transitional, like
Yeah,
the
no special
operations.
services. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to be producing like an incentive structure where it's like if you're trans, go into the military because they'll pay for your transition. I
right. I
don't
don't want that.
that doesn't seem like a good idea.
No. Yeah, and that was my only problem with it. Other than that, if they can meet the qualifications for whatever mission of service they're going into, hell, more power to them.
Yeah, if you're a veteran, collect all the benefits you're entitled to. I'm totally fine with that. It's just I don't think being trans entitles you to extra benefits.
Um, yeah, the hmm, getting out of Syria, and I don't know the whole situation, but it does feel like we are leaving a big mess there, and because this kind of has like an internal conflict with me. There's part of me that says, which was pointed out by someone in our chat, that hashtag not our problem.
Hashtag not
uh,
our problem.
yeah, like the problems in Syria, how do they affect us? Like that's
I mean,
Syria.
the main argument seems to be no one else in the region besides us and the Kurds actually give a shit about ISIS. Um, we did actually there was actually a relevant issue back when Obama tried something similar, um, where you know troops came out of Syria, ISIS started reclaiming territory, and suddenly we started seeing a shitload of ISIS. Well, not a shitload of ISIS attacks in American, but there were definitely an uptick of terrorist activity in the United States
You mean when
related.
Hillary Clinton helped start ISIS?
Oh my God. Anyway, um, but yeah, it was an uptick of ISIS activity in the United States because they were able to establish, territory in Syria, which allows them
Yeah.
to organize, which allows them to send shit our way. Like we have to remember that we're on a world stage, and if we don't deal with problems over there, there is the distinct possibility problems come over here. Now, that doesn't necessarily justify the fact that we were there in the first place, but again, we got ourselves into this quagmire, and we should either see it through or you know don't complain about the consequences later.
Yeah, yeah, but part of the problem I have with, like, I understand that, and that conflict doesn't stay within borders, especially with the way conflict is now and with terrorist attacks.
Well,
And
especially with ISIS, we're like a number one target for ISIS.
well, yeah, and in Dave Rubin's interview with
Imam
Imam
Tawidi.
Tawidi, yeah, he said that um, Muslims belong to two nations, the nation in which they live and the nation of Islam, and that I don't remember, like, I think it was somewhere towards the end where he was saying that an imam in Syria could say, um, these people are bad, and
Mufti.
yeah,
You're
they
talking.
could
Well,
declare
no, you're
fatwa or whatever, and then a Muslim somewhere will hear that and just take it upon himself to go and like kill these people or
well.
commit a terrorist attack.
What he specifically was talking about wasn't actually an imam because an imam is more like a preacher. Um,
Okay.
where you could think of a mufti as more like a cardinal to give it to like Catholic terms, right?
Okay, so they're
Um,
higher up.
right. They're higher up. They're the ones that are able to issue holy fatwas, or which are basically like not necess. It's not necessarily an assassination order. It doesn't have to be, but in a lot of cases, it just seems to be.
But it is
So
sometimes.
it is sometimes. Because I mean, Imam Tawidi has already personally got a fatwa on his head.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm not old enough to remember Salman Rushdie, but I know I've heard this story a few times about like he wrote a book, and I remember reading or listening on the audiobook of Ayan Hirsi Ali and
Hmm.
how she made a film with a guy in where was she, like in one of the Nordic countries, I don't remember, Denmark I think,
Okay.
but I may be getting that wrong. But she made a film with a guy criticizing Islam,
Uh-huh.
and the guy she made the film with ended up dead, and he was stabbed, and they used the dagger that they killed him with and stabbed him and left a note. Like they stabbed the dagger through the note, and the note was for her, that
Hmm.
like basically she was next, sort of thing. Um,
Damn.
right, and this was like I want to say like the 1990s or 80s. This wasn't super long ago, but it seems like before these sort of terrorist attacks kind of became relevant. And the thing that like shocked her was that um, the sort of thing was kind of excused away as like, oh, you can't say anything bad about Muslims because tolerance. And
Right.
she's like, what, I grew up with this, I know what I'm talking about. It's not just me being a bigot. I was a Muslim. I was taught in Muslim Brotherhood schools. I
Well, in
was
the case of the Imam, like he's still a Muslim, like he's still a devout Muslim. He's just not a radical.
right,
Like, because I mean, he
right,
was basically what he was talking about was the continuation of is like Islamist expansionism. Like, because there are still elements in, like, not all Muslims. Let's just clarify that. I'm not talking about your average run-of-the-mill Muslim, but if we're talking about an Islamist that is actively trying to expand Islam and produce caliphates and like, because I mean, the ultimate goal is to have a world Muslim order. That's what they would like to see. They think that would be a great time. I have no idea how. They can't drink beer, but I guess to each their own. But there is like a long form plan coming from these religious institutions that are ancient. Like
yeah,
these systems are ancient. The plan is ancient. It hasn't changed. The plan hasn't changed. The intentions haven't changed. The method hasn't changed. It's the same as it's always been.
yeah. And with these with the whole like Syria thing, and what I was getting at was that while I do think that I do have part of me believes that the whole like hashtag not our problem, but it kind of is our problem because of the terror attacks. But I do think that just fighting it on the ground isn't enough. It's not sufficient without the um, what should I say, propaganda warfare that goes along with it too.
Hmm.
Because if we're just on the ground shooting people, that's not what we're doing, but it kind of is. Um, then it's just creating more extremists to some degree. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, right
yes, like
now,
I do think I,
sorry, go ahead.
I do think that we do need to fight them on the ground and take out these radical cells, and try to maintain peace and order. But we also need to give like amplify the voices of like Imam Twalidi. How do you say that?
Tobidi.
Tawidi, and like Ayan Hirsi Ali, and there's another one who's on.
Wait, you can say Ayan Hirsi Ali, but you can't say Tobidi.
Yeah, I've read a lot of her stuff, so
Okay. All right.
uh, he the Imam Tawidi's new to me, so I'm still trying to. His name is still clumsy on my tongue.
Okay.
um, but yeah, I think that we need to give greater voices to these people who are dissenting within the religion of
Yeah.
peace. My ass.
I mean, no, the reformers need a megaphone more than any like in any other institution because we can sit and talk about like feminism and all these other things, which are functionally a bunch of useful idiots for all intents and purposes. Like they're not the real threat. They're basically the henchmen. So
Yeah,
it's worth keeping that in mind when you've got like an actual organized force that's actively trying to undermine our institutions.
yeah, and I was thinking today too. I was trying to come up with something to write a blog post about for my blog, and I was just kind of writing stuff down that came to mind to see if I could come up with anything. And I was trying to. I guess I've been watching too much Jordan Peterson because I was thinking, oh, we're in a time of chaos, and I'm like, well, how do we know that? And I'm like, well, because you have feminists
Did
and
you
Islamists on the same side. So if that's
but
not
did
a
you
side
save your
we're in,
father from the belly of the beast?
oh, I'm getting there. If that's not an indication that we're in a time of chaos, then what else is? Um, and so I was trying to think, well, what kind of common enemy do they have that they want to attack? And to me, it seemed like the common enemy that they share is the uh, heroic masculinity. Is what I came up with.
I suppose it's
Um,
possible, but I would say that
well,
the main thing that they both seem to agree on, that they're both like, all right, we may not agree on the end goal, but we can agree the West sucks.
right. That's ultimately the end goal, but I do think they both find value in because feminists talk about um, toxic masculinity all the time, and that's all you hear: toxic masculinity, toxic masculinity. Um, and so they never talk about the other side of like the heroic masculinity, which would be the opposite of the toxic masculinity.
Well,
And
I think it's worth remembering that like you know how everyone used to make fun of like the anti-gay preachers that would come out and are like screw the queers, and it turns out they
yeah,
actually were screwing the queers. Um,
yeah,
it it might be a very similar situation where like the reason they're so focused on toxic masculinity is because it turns them on. Because
well, yeah,
there
they're
was like a
attracted
Harvard
to it.
study, right? There was like, well, that's why they notice it so much, and it's sort of like it's almost like the tsundere trope from Japan. Where do you know what that is?
Nope.
Basically, what it is, it's the idea of a woman that shows her affection by being an asshole, right?
Oh,
She's ashamed of the fact that she likes, you know, whoever it is. So
she
instead
likes
of
to be
dealing,
dominated. Is it
well,
the
right,
50 Shades of Grey?
sometimes, but it's more of like it's more of an immaturity thing where she can't like just express herself, so it ends up coming out as her just being an asshole.
Yeah, the pulling on the pigtails and the girl pushing the boy or whatever on the playground.
Or yeah, or something like or something even possibly more extreme, like where she'll actually start hitting him or like verbally sitting there and calling him an idiot, and like in the back of her head, she's sitting there going, "Oh my God, he's so hot."
Unconsciously, consciously, who knows?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. The point I was making with the heroic masculinity thing is that like the spirit of heroic. I mean, I'm getting into metaphysical stuff, so I kind of
Uh-huh.
wish Nico was here. But the whole like the spirit of heroic masculinity is what would fight back against the creeping invasion, I guess. Might not be the right word, but the creeping invasion of Islamist ideas and ideology. And feminists don't like the heroic masculinity because it kind of weakens them because they if there's heroic masculinity then they have to admit that masculinity has a positive aspect to it, and because there's an underlying foundation of Marxism that is prevalent within modern feminism that kind of discredits the oppressor oppressed narrative that they like to share.
Well, I feel like they also feel like it discredits them personally because when it comes to someone that knows that they're not actually all that great, when someone shows up that actually is all that great, they're usually not a huge fan, right? Um, I think it's a very similar situation where they feel insecure and they don't actually believe in the whole rah rah girl power as much as they like to say they do.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas, I mean, because you meet plenty of women that are like confident in their abilities and their success and their capacity to achieve, and they don't behave this way, right?
Right.
Um, they don't. Someone that's confident in themselves doesn't behave this way because they don't need to. There's no reason to. They just go and do it, and like it's the whole Rosie the Riveter. We can do it because I'm a competent human being. I don't need to sit here and compare myself to how well men are doing. I'm just going to go do it.
Yeah, and I think it's that they don't understand. Are they, well, for me, it's that underlying philosophy of Marxism. Like that's just pernicious and awful
Hmm.
um, in every way. But it's that they can't they don't understand because of that view in life, the Marxist view. They can't understand that throughout history, it hasn't been men dominating women for the most part. I mean, certainly you can see that in the stuff in which history is written about, like the upper classes or the people in charge. You see more men in charge, like kings and emperors, than women, but you don't see all the behind the stuff. And then for the average person, it wasn't the man dominating the woman. It was we're a couple and we're working together to push back against the ever encroaching uh, suffering and chaos in the world.
Yeah, and not
um,
even that, but I mean, like most of the time, it would have been basically a quote unquote couple that's just sort of stuck together for various different reasons. It's like, well, we're here. Let's deal with it.
yeah, and part of it too is that, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that they only see authority coming from power as
Hmm.
opposed to competency. So they don't believe that just because you're competent at something that then people confer authority to you, but that the only
All
way
right.
you get authority is through power,
Yeah.
and that's not true for
True.
one. um, but it's that kind of it's a narrative that kind of makes you feel good because it says that you don't have to take any sort of responsibility for your own actions, that the only reason things are terrible for you is because somebody made them bad. And then who is it that made them bad? Well, the patriarchy or white people. And it's very pernicious and dangerous ideology.
Damn you, white people. And all right, Jordan Peterson, save it for your blog post. We gotta keep moving on.
Yeah, uh, interesting topic that I thought about, but
Sure.
um, so that was really um, it. We had a couple more stories. Um, one was one funny one. Jack Conti of Twitter wants a magic amulet.
No, Jack Dorsey.
Jack Dorsey. Oh,
Jack
what a.
Dorsey. Yeah.
We had the
That's the
conversation about the power of the Jacks earlier.
Yes, Jack is the supreme being. Anyway, um yeah, so yeah, Jack Cunty is not a part of this one. Uh in case anyone's wondering, I do know it's Jack Conti, but let's be honest, it should be Jack Cunty. Regardless, we got Jack Dorsey over here. He apparently decided to trim his beard a little bit, just a little bit, and mail it to Azalea Banks, of all people, to have her make an amulet of protection against ISIS. No,
ISIS,
really.
ISIS, the terrorist organization, or ISIS, the Egyptian goddess?
Okay. I don't have confirmation. I'm pretty sure the terrorist organization.
You never
Weirdly,
know,
Jack.
man.
Weirdly enough, Jack hasn't commented publicly. I don't think. Um,
Why would he?
yeah, I can't quite understand why he hasn't commented on this. Um, apparently, it gets better where Azalea Banks didn't actually get the shout out she wanted for her mixtape because apparently those still exist. Um,
Like a
on
cassette
Twitter,
tape?
I I don't know. Anyway, um, Jack Dorsey apparently all he was supposed to do was send a tweet that was like, "Hey, Azalea's new mixtape's coming out. Sound looks cool. Check it out." It's literally all he had to do, and he couldn't do it. So now she's apparently going to use the leftover beard trimmings to hex Jack Dorsey.
Oh, snap.
Oh shit! I know. Oh shit! It's going down. With the amulet of protection's been working so far. It's been doing great. ISIS has not killed Jack Dorsey.
Well, is he anywhere near ISIS? Is that like a serious threat for him?
Excuse me, ISIS is everywhere. Haven't weren't you listening to Imam Tweety?
Well, yeah,
Anyway,
I mean, care is ISIS.
fucking anyway. So the protection charm has been working great so far. ISIS has not killed Jack Dorsey. So now that this hex is in place, I expect that ISIS will kill Jack Dorsey in approximately 24 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Um,
What kind of hex is it? Is it like a long-term suffering hex where like they?
it's an ISIS hex, duh,
Oh,
clearly.
clearly he's gonna have just stay away from all the mosques, Jack.
Yeah, don't go any
I
like
know you're listening. I know you listen to us every week.
you see if you see a skull cap, just run the other way.
Pretty
In fact,
much.
if you see anyone with a beard at all, just run immediately.
Yeah. Well, I have a beard, so hey, it's my anti-Jack charm. So
This is how we're
that's
going to protect ourselves from the Overlord Jacks. We need to all grow beards.
that's it. We don't even need some. What is she like? Who is this person? This Azalea Banks?
She's a rapper.
Why does she have power to make like charms and stuff? She's
She's
also a
also
witch.
she's a witch. Duh.
Oh,
Come on.
well,
Weren't you
what
paying?
level?
Weren't you paying attention? Max level. She's level 100, sir.
Level 100 witch.
That's
She
right.
knows all the charms.
She does. She knows all the charms and the hexes and what to do with beard hair, apparently.
Got it.
So if Jack Dorsey does not or does get killed by ISIS, that is 100% proof that witchcraft is real. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that one.
Well,
I'm excited.
well, yeah. I'm curious to see how this goes. I mean,
I
uh,
mean, we both know he's going to get taken out by ISIS. It's really just a betting game
I disavow.
on it's more like on when.
So when now? Just let me clear up some legal stuff here. The USA Liberalist does not condone this sort of behavior. um, but yeah, that was kind of weird. I mean, you get stories like this about these wealthy elite types. Sometimes they're true, like this one seems pretty true and kind of crazy. And then,
I think I hear Azalea's hex going off in the background.
yeah, that she's coming for me.
It sounds oddly like a squeaky toy.
Well, it is a German Shepherd making that noise. So, um,
Oh my God, your German Shepherd's a member of ISIS? Fuck.
he's got the
You
beard
can't
for it.
trust
He's got
anyone.
the hair.
It's got the
Uh,
beard. I don't think it counts if it's your whole body.
oh, come on.
I
Um,
guess he does technically have beard on his. He does have hair on his chin
he does, and on his face and ears,
and everywhere else. Yeah.
everywhere else, and all over the floor. Um, yeah. Uh, so
ISIS
he,
dog. ISIS dog.
see in theaters coming to this summer. ISIS dog.
Oh my God.
um, do we? I don't have the image, but I think for the Antifa, what was it? The Antifa
Oh right, I forgot. Are we on?
threat level.
What threat level are we on right now with Antifa?
I still think we're at like a low threat level.
I think I'm like yellow. What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't.
All right, everybody. Antifa threat level is currently yellow. Just be cautious. We found one of
Caution.
their leaders. He is
Yes.
very white. Everyone's
Uh,
shocked.
well, we had the two Marine Corps reservists that were attacked in Philadelphia. Um, that didn't happen this week, but it happened a few weeks ago. But I think like they had a trial or something. But they had a news story this week about it. Um, and apparently, what happened was that the Marine Corps reservists were in town for a Marine Corps meetup, and one of the Antifa guys went over to him and said, or asked them if they were proud, referencing the Proud Boys, and the
Are
Marine
you
Corps.
proud? That's
Right.
gonna be the most confusing question ever. Like if we just
Well,
walk up to someone and just like, "Hey, are you proud
the Marine
of what?"
Corps, the Marine Corps reservists, like their slogan is "the few, the proud, the Marines," and so he thought it was a reference to that, and he's like, "Yes," and so they beat him up. um, they called
I
him
swear these people are
they
so
called them
stupid.
Nazis and white supremacists, and he was confused because his name is Godinez, um, and they kept calling him white supremacist and Nazi, and he was yelling back at them, "I'm Mexican." But apparently that doesn't matter. But he was, according to him, he was maced 6 times, hit in the head, and kicked in the ribs, while onlookers chanted "fuck him up." And he was also called a spick and a wetback.
What the fuck? Do they not? Did they just think he was like Mexican Uncle Ruckus? What is this shit?
I don't know, but that's what was being reported. Um, but we also have, and I got this from the Daily Caller, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Um, but it does have a lot of evidence to back it up that there's a person who goes by the name of Joseph Jose Alcoff, and he works with congressional Democrats in his day job, where he works for some sort of nonprofit or something. Um, I have it somewhere in my notes. I'll come to it later.
I believe the nonprofit is called In Putin We Trust.
Um,
I'm
no, he's
joking.
a payday campaign manager for Americans for Financial Reform. And
Yeah.
his brother, Sam Alcoff, is a producer for Democracy Now! Um, right. So these
Uh-huh.
people are like balls deep into to the Democratic Party. And this guy, this Joseph Jose Alcoff, he also goes by the name Jose Martin, and Chepe. So he's got 3 different identities, and
Okay,
he
if the Democrats like actually knew this dude was Antifa, they are so fucking stupid. They had to have known this would come out eventually.
well, I mean, I don't know how much they know about him, but
True.
um, in the anti-fascist handbook, Mark Bray, the author,
Mhm.
identifies Chepe as one of the organizers behind Smash Racism DC. That's the group that mobbed Tucker Carlson's home and
Oh
ran Ted
wow.
Cruz out of the restaurant. So he was allegedly involved with that. Um, and then once they kind of made the connection that Joseph Alcoff was this Chepe and Jose Martin, him, his brother, and his mom all made their Twitter accounts and social media private.
Oh shit.
Um,
So they already knew. All right.
So yeah, well, they reached out to them to talk to them, and this guy's also been quoted in press releases from Dianne Feinstein and Tammy Baldwin, both Democratic senators, and he's appeared at an event with Democratic Representative Don Bayer, and he's been pictured alongside Ohio Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown and our favorite Democratic Representative Maxine Waters, which is here or there because
Maxine
just about
Waters.
anybody can get a photo, or not anybody, I guess, but you can get photos taken of you next to people. But
True.
posing with them, you got to be a little more inside. And these photos were definitely like, okay, everybody get together for a photo. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they go hand in hand with everything. But it does seem to be enough photos to me to indicate a connection that he's definitely involved with the Democratic Party.
I think I figured it out. I think what is actually going on here is that really he just wanted a shot at Maxine's Waters.
Oh,
So he's just trying to ingratiate himself because he wants a piece.
maybe. I mean,
I mean,
he's
I
all
think we
about
all do. I think we
diversity.
all do. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think everyone looks at Maxine Waters and it's just like, give me some of that.
Don't judge. Don't judge. um, his Chepe personality is on a podcast called Radio Dispatch, and he's been quoted as saying, "We've got to dispense with nonviolence. Um, you have to expose them, meaning fascists, and you have to expose where they live, their names, what they do for a living. Never let them be anonymous, and never just push their rhetoric without directly countering it," which is kind of
the
a
the irony is biting.
ironic statement because he goes by an anonymous name to spout his rhetoric.
Well, I mostly meant now that like we get to see the quote of someone saying that. By the way, that's not anonymous anymore.
Well, and he's also been quoted on his Twitter account saying that Antifa organizations need to operate both an above board and below board operations or organizations.
What is he, the mafia?
I guess.
What the
Well, he
fuck
said
is
that
this?
it's so they can get press and then they can have access to a base of support, which is the above board. And then the underground groups are necessary so the activists can't be linked by prosecutors or the press. Um, and they
Dude,
need to,
this guy's like a mob boss. He's actually kind of awesome.
yeah, if he weren't such a freaking communist.
Well, I mean, sure, but nobody liked Al Capone at the time either. And nowadays, he's like the quintessential gangster, right?
This is like wannabe gangster. If you put this guy up against real gangsters, he'd be dead in a minute.
He could be. We could call him Alcasoy.
There you go.
I like
Um,
it.
well,
He
yeah,
is
he's
now
also
Alcasoy, as far as I'm concerned.
some more quotes, some more gems. He was commenting using the hashtag Dear Rich People, and when he
Hmm.
said "Die in a fire" or "Someday we'll kill you in a fire," um, he also urged
Does that mean
his
if I volunteer for the fire, they won't put me in the fire? That sounds like a good deal right there.
yeah. You can either die in a fire yourself, or they'll just burn you alive. One of the two.
Right.
Your choice. You get a choice. That's what you wanted, right? As in liberalists,
Do I,
just wanted a choice.
if I die in a fire, is just getting really blazed sufficient, or do I like actually have to put myself into a fire?
I guess it's up to you. As long as you die, they don't care.
I
Um,
will, I will blaze until I die. It's gonna be great.
well, in 2017, he urged his non-violent followers on Twitter to stop limiting yourself and said that the left wins nothing with nonviolence. Um, and he also advised his law-abiding Twitter followers, saying that they're doing it wrong. And then he also offered advice on how to execute a good neck punch. I
I'm
don't know if
telling you,
this.
this guy's a secret badass.
Hmm,
He can do a Vulcan neck punch. Come on. You think
yeah,
you,
I would
you
like to see him and his buddies up against the Proud Boys.
I just want to see him and his Vulcan like neck punch techniques versus base stick man. I want to see who wins.
Well, the photos of him, he wasn't. He didn't look like. He looked like your typical. He
I will
looked
buy
like.
tickets to this fight.
He looked like the what you assume somebody looks like when they're in Antifa.
Wait, I forgot he's a communist. I will buy bread for Venezuelans to see this fight.
You will support the party.
I will.
Um,
I will feed some Venezuelans for a day to see this fight.
he also, so this guy, remember at the beginning I said he put his Twitter account and social media accounts on private.
Yeah.
Um, where people like Sargon are being banned from Patreon for saying the N word. Um, he tweeted in 2015 that Donald Trump would make for, quote, such a spectacular public guillotining. And, quote, I truly hope he has a very public death at the hands of the pitchfork wielding exploited, a public execution that befits Trump's stature. But, you know, he's still
This
on
guy
Twitter. That's
sounds
okay. That doesn't
way
violate
too
their
lame.
terms of service. Um,
It just sounds so LARPy. It,
right.
it
I
really
mean,
does.
part of
It
me
just
thinks is this just a big troll? Like, is this like a long term troll?
no, I could honestly see someone doing that unironically. It just sounds like some kid that wants to sound tough but doesn't
Yeah,
actually know how.
he wants to talk tough, like on his podcast and on Twitter. But if you get him in real life, I don't think he would be nearly half as badass as he thinks he is.
I just want him to go on there and be like, "I will destroy you utterly, Trump. Fear me."
Well, he has said uh, in 2013 that he wanted to join a conspiracy, quote, a conspiracy to destroy the United States from within.
Oh my God.
Um, so that kind of feels like he'd be down with the Muslim Brotherhood and all those guys. Um,
Instead of getting down with the sickness, he's getting down with the Muslims.
right. And he also said that his ultimate goal is to tear down all existing social structures to make way for a new post-state world, quote, without capitalism, without private property, without patriarchy, without white supremacy, and without imperialism. And I got one more quote if you haven't been, depressed enough. Uh, quote, capitalism, especially North American capitalism, is so based on this individualistic and neoliberal perspective that we all exist as automatons, as individual. So if we're uh, going to engage, oh, I wrote this wrong. Anyway, we have to remind people that collective struggle wins us victories. What we have to do before the big final collective victory, social revolution, is we have to win a lot of small ones. And he was talking, I think, about like the passing of Obamacare and something like socialized medicine, stuff like that. Um, so yeah, there hasn't really been any like pending Antifa riots or anything planned, or in Portland, there hasn't been any Patriot prayer rallies planned for Antifa to come throw fireworks at us again, um, or anything like that. So the threat level is still cautious, but you can kind of see how these people think and kind of get a feel for what they really want. Um, so that's pretty much covers all the stories we had for tonight. I think that we'll just wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the weekly wrap with the USA Liberalists. Thank you for engaging in the live chat. And thank you for subscribing, or please subscribe, please like, and share. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And thank you all for listening and sticking with us. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.